Hi, my name is Laura Dahne, and I welcome you to this edition of Fascinating Women Touching the World. You know, as a Christian coach, I absolutely love helping men and women get unstuck and to live more full lives. Well, and for me, that means more peaceful, more grateful, more prayerful. Well, you know, I truly believe that God works through both his word and his people. And the reason that I'm choosing to do this platform is because I love to highlight what women are doing in the world, whether through their ministries or whether through their businesses. Well, yes, I love men too, and I look forward to in the future interviewing some men who are touching the world as well. Well, today I've got my cup of coffee with me because I'm going to have a girlfriend conversation with a woman that is very, very special to me. Today's special guest is Susan Staley, and she has impacted my life greatly. And she doesn't even know how much so, but she's done it through her kindness and she's done it through her ministry. Well, I originally met Susan in North Carolina at the Cove, where she and her team were performing ministry for a women's retreat. Well, since then, Susan and I have stayed in touch, and we've done so for a couple of reasons. One is because we have two people that we are very much in connection with, and that's her two sisters, Kat and Shannon. Shout out from Susan and I to you two. And we also have subjects that we're very interested in, like Christian inner healing and beauty, and also today's subject, health and wellness. Well, my dear friend Susan is a faster weight coach. And this is a program that I especially like because it focuses on the whole woman, not just on a number on the scale. Amen, right? She is living proof that the faster way not only works, but can change a woman's outlook and her strength. Woohoo! Amen. And I love this part, even in menopause. And for those of you that, like myself, have gone through menopause or going through menopause, you can really appreciate. She is here to share her passion and her story. So please welcome my dear friend, Susan Staley.
Hey, thank you for having me. The only way I'm going to get through this is I'm having a cup of coffee with my girlfriend. So this is
Yes.
how I'm approaching this interview, and I'm just grateful that I get to have coffee with you. Thank you.
I am too. And I was delighted that you said that you would come and spend some time with me today. Share a little bit, if you would, about how you and I met all those years ago at the Cove in North Carolina. What were you doing?
I was head of women's ministry at a non-denominational church in Charlotte, North Carolina called Joy Christian Fellowship. And I partnered with a dear friend, Barbara Arcaney, and we just love to do extravagant things. And so we'd had our first retreat, which was kind of humble, and then we set our eyes on having a spectacular venue, which was the Cove. And you wandered on the scene. You were part of the Florida contingency. And I remember, probably the moment I remember the most was the last session we had, and I think we blew you away a little bit. We had feather boas and we did some crazy things, but I can be a fool for Jesus. So
Oh, yes.
Anyway,
It was so good.
but the moment I remember the last session. It was Sunday morning, and we went into the chapel to share our testimonies. And I remember you walking in, because I was already in the front, and you looked up and your face was just, I can't even describe it, but I will remember this beautiful blonde thing looking up and looking around, and the impact of the scene, but also the weekend, to see it on your face. It was amazing. So I will always remember that. Funnily enough, the theme was friends for a reason, a season, and a lifetime, which I find very interesting that here we are, it was 2006, this many years later, we're still in friendship. So I love that.
So beautiful. You know, I just want to say a little bit about that too. At the time that I went there, there were a number of things happening. One, our family had just gone through a personal tragedy, and I was broken emotionally. I just was broken emotionally. And I had said to the Lord, I would love to go to the woods. Hello, there's no woods in Florida, right? But a dear friend of ours, Laura Dunn, called me and invited me. She was going to go there. And so she invited me to go, and I went. I was so excited to be able to go. The other thing that impacted me was I had never seen anybody do women's ministry like you and your team did women's ministry. In fact, the first thing that you all did was you came out with Pretty Woman, pink t-shirts, pink sweatshirts, and sunglasses. There were presents all over the table. I remember that. And you girls opened the show with singing Pretty Woman to us. And I swear, I remember thinking this, can you do that? And I have to tell you, I've never personally done ministry the same ever myself. You, Susan, the Lord used you and your team to show me how women's ministry not only could be done, in my opinion, should be done.
Aww,
it was life-changing. I left there a different woman. And this is, I just want to give a shout out to you for the ministry of music, the ministry of prayer, the ministry of reaching out to hurting women, because I was very, very broken, like I said, when I went there, and I left restored. Now that doesn't mean, right, that everything was healed in our family, but I think beatific, like when you were describing me, I didn't even know that you had that memory of me, but I think that it would be like this look of beatific, because I was so surrounded by God's love through his people, and the Cove is an amazing place to be.
So
oh my gosh, it's not amazing. I've gone back a few times since then, but that was my first, was with you, and it was incredible. And that's where I met your sister Kat.
Oh yeah, you'll never forget Kat. She's an amazing, passionate woman, and I love to watch your friendship.
Yeah, her and I, as you know, we've remained super, super close for all these years. And she was a dramatist at that event, and that's how I first met her. But anyway, I just want to say the last thing on that is, you may or may not be as familiar with this, but a part of what had broken my heart was a huge loss in our family, and a part of that was through the pain of a suicide, and that had happened in our family. And the Lord had given me a promise that he was going to show me something there that would provide me great, great hope. And you and Kat were that great, great hope, that he showed me that people can go through tragedy and they can be whole. And I just want you to know that you were a sign to me then, and you were a sign to me now, that we can go through terribly difficult things, and but the Lord is able to restore us. So I want to thank you, Susan, publicly for all that ministry that you did for others, but I feel like you did it for me.
Well, I think I love how you can do something without really having much expectation. I would honestly say my only expectation was for women to know their value and to feel understood, at that point in ministry. And funnily enough, what's interesting is I thought deep down inside, that's what I was looking for. And you can give, but you can give better when you receive first. Yes. And I think I've finally gotten to the place where I have understood my value, and God doesn't just love me, he really enjoys me. And that's a game changer to find that out. And I'm not sure at the time when I was doing ministry that I understood. I'm quite positive I didn't understand that God delighted in me, but I do now. And it's a transformative idea.
And this is something I know that you are sharing with other women, helping them to connect to that beautiful truth. So to kind of like back up a little bit so you can elaborate more on what I just said, which is, I know that you are helping other women to connect to this great truth that God delights in them, right? Talk about a transformative thought. I'd love to hear about the health journey that you've been on, because I know that a lot of women listening are going to be able to connect with that.
Sure. Well, I would say that I have had a pretty unhealthy relationship to food in my body most of my life. I think it started at puberty. I got my period at 10. I started developing, and I interpreted development as being larger, being odd, being out of place. And I pretty much carried that on with the rest of my life. And it's funny, I'll look back at pictures, and there were seasons where I was heavier, and there were lots of seasons where I was lighter. But it matters what you think on the inside. You know, the outside can be everything that you want it to be, but if the inside, your perception is that I'm large, I'm odd, I'm broken, I'm out of place, then that's something that takes some healing to change you. So I have been a career dieter, and I've always been pretty active. I have done some weird things, and it started in puberty, and it has carried on. And throughout my adult life, I will say the scale has fluctuated throughout my life, but the insecurity did not. It was a constant companion, and it's really interesting because I think for women, we tend to think that the goal is to be smaller. And that was always my goal, to be smaller, to be quieter, to not be the center of attention. And so I did lots of diets and things like that. And I was up and down and up and down, met the love of my life who loved me unconditionally, went up and down and up and down, and it was pretty active. But my husband had a health scare about 6 years ago, like blood pressure. They thought maybe something was going on with his heart. So we completely changed our diet. I thought we cleaned it up. We worked out like madmen, and he lost 30 pounds and I lost 5. And this is in the wake of menopause. And menopause was a game changer because, when you're young, you can restrict your diet and exercise a little bit and lose that 10 pounds and then, do it again and again. But when you get older, menopause is just a game changer. And perimenopause is a game changer. I mean, hormones are a game changer.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I was so frustrated by the fact that we did the same thing. And I worked so hard and thought I was eating so well, and nothing changed. So that is, I broke up with my scale of that same time because I was tired of it telling me whether I was going to have a good day or a bad day, whether I was a success or not a success. So I put it away. And 2018, I came across Faster Way to Fat Loss. It's not weight loss, it's fat loss. I came across some before and afters on Instagram, and it kept coming up in my feed, and I kept checking it. And I would look at these before and afters, and I started seeing people my age, people who had the weight in the middle and the thighs, who kind of were starting to look like a refrigerator with legs, and I thought, and in 6 weeks, they had dramatic results.
Wow,
I mean, like
6 weeks. That's fast.
And so I thought, I put a tab in there. I thought, let me think about this. And after my 3 kids got married in 3 months, 3 weddings, 3 months, 1 mama, I decided that I would try Faster Way. My results were amazing. First of all, I ate more food than I'd ever eaten. I worked out less than I'd ever worked out. And I went from a 12 to an 8 in 6 weeks. And I lost over 18 inches, and most of it was in my midsection. And, but, the idea of getting smaller, that's what I thought I was in there for. But the real transformation is I became healthier and stronger.
That's
and
this, I know, I have to say, a lot of women's ears are perking up, because when you say plenty of food, because that's what most of, I'll speak for myself, if there's not enough food, it's not sustainable, right? And then there's these body parts that, that seem to be holding on to the weight more. So you're saying that you were discovering that this particular way of eating, thinking, living was literally transforming your health in your body.
Yeah, and I would say this, instead of getting smaller, I actually it changed the composition of my body, like completely transformed the composition of my body. I went in there with a weight loss goal, but that's the scale doesn't matter. What matters is non-scale victories, like how do you feel in your clothes? Are you sleeping well? Those kinds of things. And the I have muscle and definition, which is ridiculous because I'm in my, well, I'm 57, and
Woo, girl, you make 57 rock.
but I cannot believe, and I think I came out of the womb weighing 160 pounds, size 12, and I got down to 130. I mean, I bought extra small shirts. But even that doesn't matter as much as there's a strength in me and an endurance and a transformation that's taken place in my body and inside. Mm-hmm. And to be able to live abundantly, to eat well, to feed myself, to enjoy food and enjoy activity and not overdo it, it's pretty amazing. Yeah. It's a big win-win for me.
Well, and the proof is in the pudding. I mean, you have your own before and after pictures. You used to admire other women that had that success and transformation, right? And I know that neither of us are saying is that weight is the problem. My dear friend Mercy Rice, she'll tell you that it's not the weight, it's all the things that are actually, that when you lose the weight, it's way more than the weight. It's like you said, it's better sleep, it's less arguing with food, it's being able to be at peace and at rest in your own mind and in your own body. But let's face it, there are, for many of us, there's this excess weight that we can't seem to get rid of. And it's weighing us down literally, right? But it's not just weighing us down in our bodies, it's weighing us down in our minds. Women often don't participate in things that they could do, like being by the pool. And I think, I didn't intend for this conversation to happen now, but what a great time to be happening, because it's about to be bathing suit season again. And I think about how many of us women have held back from participating in life, in joy, in family, with friends, because we're afraid or embarrassed of our bodies. This seems to be a pretty typical thing. So here you are, 57, rocking 57, saying, I've got definition. I'm feeling so much at peace with myself. So you participated for how long?
It was about 9 months. I carried on. It's all online. It's a digital program that has meal plans, workouts, and then you get a coach. So you get personalized coaching, and you get a community. So when you join around, you get this. So I love that community aspect, and I love the lifestyle. It was very sustainable, and so I just continued with it. And when you ask me the question why I became coach, I'll give you the answer to that one. but for now, it was like, I can't imagine living another way. At this juncture of my life, it has completely changed my life. And I get the privilege, and I say this, I'm going to get teary-eyed, but I get the privilege of walking with women who have struggled so much, with self-care and self-love and being uncomfortable and at war with their bodies. And it's a terrible place to be, because you miss out on so much life when you spend so much time hating your body. Yeah. It is a terrible, terrible thing. And if I can help somebody love their body, but also be healthy and whole, I'm in this for life. Sorry about being emotional about that.
Don't be. I think that this shows how deep it resonates in you, with you, and why you're a successful coach. So tell us, how did you make that transition from saying, this is my way of living, and then to step out? Because I know you are not the one to grab the microphone, grab the spotlight, or grab the center stage. That's not who you are. So why did you make this, life-changing decision to become a coach for the Faster Way?
I would tell everybody what happened, and people would say, "What happened to you?" And I'd tell them, and they would join my coach, Kelly Chaw, who I will love forever and a day. Precious woman, and really helped change my life. Um, so, it obviously wasn't, I wasn't doing this or sharing this because of money. But the, the short answer is my mom's death is
Mm,
what really precipitated this. It's funny, you start looking backwards in your life and you come to recognize some things. And my mom died in the 27th of December. And she was an anorexic. She was, a 78-year-old anorexic. And she, I think she was an anorexic for a long time. And I had an eating disorder for decades as well. But I didn't realize, I thought I was had this own internal battle, and my mom and I had a lot of battles over my body, over what I put in my mouth. But I realized the real issue was she had the struggle. And when
mm,
you are raised by somebody who has an eating disorder, it is going to leave a dent, and it left a
yes,
dent in my life.
yes.
So my mom is was an amazing, still is in my heart, vibrant. I call her my dysfunctional Alice in Wonderland. She was just always mischievous and wonderful, a little dysfunctional, but loved her so much. And she determined that she was done with life, and she did it by not eating for the last month of her life. And me and my two sisters were by her side, and we stopped making food an issue because we saw what she was doing. We called hospice in, and we sat with her and had some of the sweetest time we've ever had, because the last 5 years have been really tumultuous because
Yeah.
food has always been the issue. Mommy, eat. Mommy, take care of yourself. Kathy was very instrumental in trying to get her some help at the Renfrew Center for Eating Disorders, but to no avail. And so when she finally passed, I, I did a lot of soul searching, and I thought, like, what kind of legacy could I leave? What
Mm.
legacy could I leave to women? And I took a real hard look about where I was at. Now, you can't easily become a fast away coach. They interview you, you don't always get accepted, and they only do it twice a year.
Wow.
And so, anyway, we got a little money early on after mommy passed away. And I thought, I'm going to let mommy pay for me to become a faster way coach.
How ironic and apropos.
Isn't that just like a beautiful turnaround?
It
So
is.
it's because of my mom's death, and because of her life, that I think I wound up. I think it was inevitable that I was going to be a faster way coach. First of all, I was going to find it because it was a great weight loss program. But secondly, it's such a vehicle to help women.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's my mom's death led me to become a faster way
I'm
coach.
glad I asked that question, because I didn't know the bigger why behind the what of that. And it also goes to show why you are so passionate about this. It's the background, right? Thank you for sharing that. That's very deep and beautiful.
You're welcome.
What is one of the things that you find, as you're coaching women, what do you find is to be like a common thread, like a common complaint that most women have?
I think people don't really understand the impact of stress, the
Mm,
impact that stress has on one's body. And when we're younger, we're so much more resilient.
right.
We can flip a switch. We can cut out sodas and lose 10 pounds. We can do things like that. But I don't think we really realize the toll of yo-yo dieting, but also the toll that stress takes on on our life. And I think the old model of what was taught in days gone by, you and I know this, eat less, exercise more,
Right.
where we're doing excessive cardio and we're on our machines and we're walking outside and we're running when our joints are hurting, and we're eating like a rabbit, or we're eating like a carnivore, whatever. We're doing these
Yes.
things. And I think what people are recognizing is that it is at the expense of their health. And at
Yes.
some point, if you restrict and restrict, leave out whole food groups, and you are exercising excessively, it can affect, it can give you adrenal fatigue. It's going to impact your thyroid. Your metabolism is going to be shot. And I think you have this misconception that I can do the old thing again and again and again, and I can get back where I was. But we've learned so much, and there's so much science behind some of the strategies with Faster Way, that we need to exercise smarter, and we need to feed our bodies well, and we need to rest our bodies. And I think people they don't really understand the impact that kind of lifestyle is having on their hormonal health. And
Could I just say amen to that? Many
yes,
years
yes.
ago, I haven't shared this with you before, but many, many years ago, I wanted to enter into a competition, a fitness competition. I've always been fascinated with certain fitness competitions. And I was doing the right thing, right? All the right things. And then one day, standing in my office, the lights literally went out. I mean, I just literally remember the moment. Lights went out and I fainted. And it turns out it wasn't the first time. It hadn't happened for many years, but here it had happened at this time. And I had my my hormonal panel done, and I had been told ahead of time that I was going to find that my cortisol levels were off the charts, and it was actually quite the opposite. I had no cortisol to speak of, and so there's this danger, and I want to compliment you on what you're saying, in that it's both. Sometimes because of the patterns of our history, constant stress, people that grow up with constant stress, in that constant fight or flight, don't even realize, because they say, well, my life is peaceful. Yeah, but your body can have been under stress for many years. Stress takes a lot of different forms.
Yes.
And you wonder why you're eating the way they say you should eat, and you're exercising the way they say you should exercise, but lights go out. And I had to pull way back. And so thank you that, what you're talking about is addressing the bigger issue. It's not just a number on the scale. It's so much bigger than that. And so, yeah, the hormones play a big part, which is what intrigued me, is that you see menopause as not necessarily a curse, but, it can be a gift. And it goes back to, again, how are you treating yourself? How are you feeding yourself? How are you nourishing yourself while you're going through menopause? So would you speak about that a little bit?
I will, because if somebody at the onset of menopause had said that menopause was a gift, I would have pinched their head right off their shoulders. That was the wrong word at the wrong time. But I remember I went through, like we've talked about, so a lot of inner healing, and this really sweet mentor counselor of mine, Francie. She had shared with me that her chiropractor made the comment that she thought that menopause was a gift. And I thought, well, there's something wrong with this lady. And it's funny, because you need, sometimes you need some distance between when you hear something and when it actually kind of resonates with you. And but I didn't dismiss it. It was such an odd comment that it lodged in the fleshy portions of my soul, so I didn't let go of it. But as a good girl, and I would say that has been my role most of my life, that I love peace. I love being helpful. We had a real turbulent upbringing oftentimes, and so I wanted to be the peacemaker, and my role was to be the good girl. And my mom would always say, "You're such a good girl, Susie. You're such a good girl, Susie." And which, I was
You
getting
reinforce
something.
that.
Yeah, I was getting something out of it. There was some payback for that idea. But the truth, the problem with being a good girl is good girls, they stuff a lot inside. You know, the Southern phrase, suck it up, buttercup, put on your big girl panties. We live by those mottos. We work hard. We're the first one at church. We're the last one to leave. We put others in front of us, which sounds very noble. But the truth is, we are a steam kettle ready to explode. And menopause is the heat that we need to cause us to explode. I find it's interesting. One of the emotions that I find most detestable, not so much now, is anger. Anger really sets me off. I can even hear people speak with passion, and I hear it as yelling. We grew up with a lot of yelling in our household in our younger years, so I think it's a trauma thing. But in menopause, one of the first feelings that I started feeling like it with intensity was anger. Like it would just like go from 0 to 10, 0 to 60 in like 2 seconds. And I would feel these emotions, or I would feel super sad, or I would feel all these things. And I think I had taught myself as a good girl not to feel, to have empathy for others, but not to feel for myself. And when menopause comes along and you have no control, I'm not saying you don't have control where you go postal over people, but you feel it well up inside of you. You have a choice, is to see it as the gift or see it as the curse that will get through it. But let me tell you, if you just get through it, menopause can take 10 to 15 years. It's a real pain in the booty. So if you look at it as a gift and you see those moments when they come out, to be able to sit with yourself and to say, what am I feeling and why am I feeling it? And just really sit and be introspective. And I think that you get so busy with life and so busy in times. And let's also talk about the fact that during menopause is a time where we're launching our kids out, or at least getting them into the married thing. We're experiencing empty nest for the first time. And then the other thing that we're taking care of parents, ailing parents. And so it is, can I say shit show? Because if I can't, bleep me out. It is just a crazy time of life.
Yes.
And but it can be a gift if you pay attention to the tension and you start to feel and you start to let yourself matter, and you start caring for yourself. Self-care is like a real mantra for me. But
I so love that.
It's a big game changer.
Well, everything you said is just resonating with me, which is why I really don't like to have a lot of conversation before our girlfriend conversations, because then it's so fresh for me too. But, I'm interested for a couple of reasons, but one is that I found menopause to be very simple for me, but a lot of reasons why I understand that it was simple for me is a lot of what you're saying is I had worked through a lot of inner healing issues. That's an area I'm very passionate about. I'm all about, helping women and men, but helping women release their pent up voice. I believe that we're speaking spirits made in the image and likeness of God, and we were meant to be speaking, right? Not stuffing. I know how to do both. I know that there's deliverance from that. And so I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, even though I had some physical ailments going on at times, sometimes like we'd go from 0 to 60, over nothing. Funny story is that when I first started going through menopause, I actually thought I had an infection. I called my doctor and said, I just keep getting like hot, like a fever. But it didn't sound like what other people had talked about with menopause. I never broke out in a sweat, let's say. I just all of a sudden would feel like an atomic bomb went off in me, but I didn't connect it. So I'm going to share a tip because I'm going to ask you about a tip in just a moment. But one night in bed while I was reading about menopause and about this heat, right? Because I started sleeping with the big fan on me, right? Because I wasn't sweating, but I was burning up. I read this crazy thing, and I went and did it and it worked. And it was this, somebody said to take malic acid, which is apple cider vinegar with the mother in it, which I have been using for years, to take a tablespoon in a glass of water, and or maybe they said a teaspoon, It doesn't matter. I took a tablespoon. I don't mind the flavor. Put it about 8 ounces of water, put a tablespoon in, went to bed. Did not have another hot flash. That's the truth. That has been my story. Did not have another hot flash or whatever, because they say what it does is that the malic acid resets the hypothalamus in the brain. They say it's like your thermostat gets stuck. Isn't that interesting?
Yes.
So about a year later or so, the heat started coming up again. I went into my kitchen. I drank some more malic acid, and again, it went away. So for anybody who, for whatever reason, has not been, helped with the hot flashes, just, maybe you'll have success like I did with just some apple cider vinegar, like Bragg's, that has the mother in it. And take that for a few days and see if that doesn't help reset the hypothalamus. It's just definitely did work for me. And I will say, regarding menopause, another thing is my wonderful chiropractor, Dr. Bagnell, he put me on GABA. That was the other thing that I suffered from, is I was not sleeping. And it was miserable. And that was really the only two things I was dealing with. But he put me on GABA, that not gabapentin, that's a whole nother thing. But, over the counter GABA, it mimics the hormone. And it was a game changer for me. What GABA does is it actually relaxes the central nervous system. And going back to what you talked about with stress, Susan, and how women don't connect stress, I just have to applaud that again, because I remember the moment I literally felt myself relax. And that was after I'd been on GABA for a very, very, very short time. And I remember sitting in the car and I literally felt my muscles relax. The reason that was so noticeable is because for years, my chiropractor and others, when they were trying to do tests on me, they'd say, relax. And I'd be like, I am relaxed. They'd be like, no, you're not. You're rigid. You're tense. I didn't even know that. Again, maybe back to the adrenals, all that, like you're talking about, it all connects. It all matters. So anyway, between the over-the-counter GABA and just taking some malic acid, I was really helped from that place of hormones, for anybody who is really liking to do things more in a natural kind of way. So since I shared that tip, right, I would love to know, like, what health tip or eating tip have you found that was a game changer for you?
Well, I'd like to share two. One is in connection with our discussion with hormones. Number one, I would say, the lie is carbs are bad. Carbs are our friends. And it's actually the preferred fuel source of the body, of all the fuel sources that we have. And, most of our food is made up of 3 macronutrients: fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. And some of the most nutritiously dense food that we can find has a carbohydrate in it. And so when we live carbohydrate restrictive diets, it impacts us mainly because of hormonal health. Hormones need carbohydrates to grow and to function. And I'm just looking at my notes. Carbs are important for initiating your blood sugar response, which initiates your insulin. And insulin is like the master hormone of the body, and it shuts on and off other hormones like testosterone or progesterone. And when we restrict over a long period of time, we are actually impacting our health. Now, on a short time, a lot of people who are doing the keto diet, they are having remarkable results. And, it's exciting. And we do include carb cycling, but the problem is, over a long term, something is going to break, and it's going to be your hormonal health. And that affects your sleep, that it affects your moods, and it affects your hot flashes. It affects so many things. So I would add that carbohydrates are really essential. You can restrict them for a time, and we do that because we are trying to train our bodies to be metabolically flexible, to sometimes burn fat. That's why we're faster way to fat loss, because we eat in strategic ways and work out in strategic ways to target and use our fat sources as fuel. But on other days, we're doing strength training and active recovery activities, and we're feeding our body full macros. I mean, there are times, Laura, that I'm eating the same amount as Kevin is, because I'm hungry, because I'm lifting weights, because I'm doing these things. And I'm only doing it 30 minutes a day, but I am feeding my body well 5 days a week, and 2 days a week I'm implementing carb cycling, and mainly because number one, and I continue to do it, number one, stress will always be an issue until this time is over. And stress releases cortisol, which causes us to hold on to fat in our midsection. And so that's the one tip. Carbs are our friends. The other one is that I think any of us can try is intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is essentially giving your body a set period of time for digestive rest and a set period of time for eating. Some people do 12 hours and 12 hours. Ideally, the ideal is 16 hours of digestive rest and 8 hours of eating. So what that looks like for me is I ate last night, I finished at 7. So I woke up this morning, I'm having my coffee, some sparkling water. I may do my workout today. I may not have time. But then at 12, I'm going to break my fast. And I either break it with lunch or I break it with breakfast. But I make sure I've got all 3 macros and I'm feeding myself well. And then I eat, 2 meals and a snack. Some people eat 3 meals. And I'm finished at 8 o'clock at night. Now I can move that window depending if I'm going to go out to dinner with somebody. But what happens is when you give your body a period of digestive rest, your body has time to shut down and to heal and to repair on a cellular level. And that helps with your metabolism. And that is one of a weight loss strategy. So that's something that you could simply try. You could just eat breakfast a little bit later. Don't eat till 10, and then finish up at 6 or 7. Just give it a try. It sets your clock to a nice rhythm.
So thank you for those 2 tips, not even just one. So you being a coach, is a part of what you do is help a woman to discover what those macros, because there is some amounts, obviously. So I guess a part of your work is helping a woman to not only understand what food groups she needs to be eating, but in what levels or what quantities, I should say. So, because that's very important, right? Eating too little or eating too much, so I could see where you coaching a woman through that whole process, because honestly, you can take the advice. I mean, I know that anybody can Google this and do it, and God bless them for sure, right? But I could see how having a coach is so much more helpful, because not only do you get to unpack some emotional things, especially with a woman like yourself who comes from a tumultuous background, who has, weight identity issues, who's struggled with this so much of her own life and found success, because we all want to be coached by somebody who's had success in that area, right? But also for someone to say, at your weight, it's this, but to get to your goal. So I could see that is a very important work, because that's where it gets kind of like wonky. It's where women can get, I speak for myself, where, you can get like discouraged because you don't really know what the amounts are. And so you're either getting too little or too much.
Well, and I would just speak to that as I thought I was broken because I couldn't lose weight, but it wasn't I was broken. I just didn't know the right way to feed my body.
Yes.
And so with Faster Way, you have a community that whoever joins around that I'm doing. And during that community time, we encourage and support one another. And I introduce the strategies that we use for the Faster Way lifestyle over time. And by the end of it, it's becoming more intuitive. We're doing it much more naturally. But the truth is, we tend to look at food from a calorie standpoint.
Yes.
And we don't pay attention to calories, and we don't pay attention to the weight on the scale. This is our judge. We use, it's not a judge. It's a guide that helps us understand how our bodies have changed. And we also use macronutrients as our goals, not weight loss goals. And that is, I can't tell you how many women through the program, they'll tell me, my sugar's down, my pants are bigger, I have more energy, I'm sleeping better, but I just got on scale and I've only lost 4 pounds, and I'm like, Well, it occurs to me that if you just didn't get on that scale, you would be pretty happy. You know, you
Yeah.
would be happy with all those choices. So
Yeah.
we're learning to redefine success. My goal in joining Faster Way was to get smaller. But what I realized is the goal that we really should all have is to become stronger. Because if we're stronger,
Yeah.
we're going to be healthier. And let me tell you, a 5-pound dumbbell is smaller than a 5-pound bag of sugar. We take up less space when we have more muscle and we have less fat. So it's all going to work out if we do that.
That's a great analogy. I've never heard anybody say that, but I really appreciate that. Yeah, a 5-pound bag of sugar versus a 5-pound weight. Yeah, I really appreciate that. You know, I like to say 100 pounds, and 100 years ago, you know, I was a fitness instructor. You know, I was a AFA certified, a fitness
Wow.
instructor. Yeah, I was actually really drew the crowds that love to do low impact with weights. I was all about the low weights, and boy, you can really build a strong, hard body that way.
Yes.
But I can appreciate that a lot of times people didn't understand the difference between fat weight and muscle weight. And muscle does weigh more than fat. And so you can, you know, lose 10 pounds of fat, but gain 5 pounds of muscle, right? And people think that they've only lost 5 pounds, but that's not accurate. You know, you can't, it's like they say, trying to, you know, compare apples to oranges.
Well, and typically in the excessive cardio restrictive dieting, we lose weight, but I don't know the percentage. I didn't find my notes, but there's a percentage of muscle that we lose when we do those kinds of plans. And so our goal is to use fat as a fuel source on some days and to build lean muscle on others, because when you have muscle, you are optimizing your
You really
metabolism.
are.
Even at rest, your muscle is burning calories or energy. And so that's what the change, it changes. And like I said, muscle takes up less space than fat does.
I'm going to remember that that picture in my head. How long do women typically coach with you?
We have a new client experience. We've called them traditionally a round, but really our goal is for a 6-week round
Mhm.
is to get people introduce the strategies and get them up and running at the end of 6 weeks. And so some choose to take that lifestyle and then mimic some of the exercises because there's a pattern to what we do, and they do that at home. And you know, I'm still trying to stay in touch with some of my clients that are choosing to do that. And then some will continue on as I did with Faster Way. And because I love the community aspect of it.
Mhm.
And you and I both know on a faith level, on a physical level, on every level, community is essential and important. And so the community aspect really just engaged me, kept me accountable. There were people to celebrate with me. So I joined the VIP. I had access to the workouts, the meal plan, head trainers, health coaches, and I loved that. So 6 weeks is how a round begins,
Okay.
and I get to guide you through that. We have an app; everything's on the app, which
Mhm.
is very cool and very easy. And we also have access to the portal, so a lot of us do our exercises, the videos. You can do them in the gym or at home. But I'll tell you, doing them during the quarantine, it was amazing, those women that joined me during the quarantine, because there were people afraid because they couldn't go to the gym, but there
Yeah.
were women who finally had time to take care of themselves. So they got to
Yes.
do everything at home. And that was really kind of a cool experience.
Well, I was thinking about when you were talking about stress and how that actually puts on weight. I could see where this would be a great time for women to connect with you and begin this program, because let's face it, right now, our world, and in particular right now, our nation is full of stress, you know, between the pandemic and then between, you know, the police brutality, or, you know, the you know, Black Lives Matter movement that's going on. You know, there's so many emotions, you know, and all these things cause stress. So, you know, it being right on the heels of a pandemic that has literally shut the world down, this is a great time for women that are feeling that stress to actually embrace, I like how you say, you know, becoming strong, not becoming smaller, but becoming stronger. And, you know, recognizing that, as you have so well said in previous times, you know, self-care is self-love. And boy, if there's anything we need in this world right now more, it's love. And let's begin, you know, to understand too that that also means self-love. It is loving others, but it is about
Well,
loving ourselves well, as you know, in
yeah,
addition.
I think I had the misconception that self-care was selfish. But I always think about the analogy of being on an airplane when the stewardess says, you know, this oxygen mask is going to come down, first to put it on you and then help the people beside you. Because if you pass out, you're not going to be
Yeah.
much good to the people around you. And I see that as vital. Just, you know, just like Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. How can you really love if you don't love yourself? I think you can love, but it takes it to a whole different level. And that's probably what I've experienced when I realized that
Yes.
God loves me and delights in me, and I'm starting to see my value. I don't know. There's a new energy in loving others, and I really want people to know that self-care is not selfish. And if you invest in yourself, whatever you do, whether it's fast or way or whatever it is, investing in your health and feeding yourself properly, and movement and internal work like what you're doing, Laura, is essential to live full, authentic lives.
Amen.
And that's what I want. I was going to say this in the beginning, but really in the beginning when I started women's ministry, I wanted women to feel valued and loved. But as I grew and as I started stepping into who I was and knowing who God saw me, I wanted then to help women find their voice, whether they're a writer or whether they're a singer. And I wanted to empower them to tell their story, because if you tell your story, you will change the world, because people will know that you're not alone, that you're not odd, that you're not bigger than everybody else, that that insecurity you're feeling, we're feeling the same thing. And you give them hope when they see your story grow. And so that little seed of a beginning was a good seed, but it's grown into something bigger, because I want to empower women to love themselves and to love others well.
Well, and that's what seeds should do, is they should become something much larger than what it began to do. So you've impacted a lot of women. You've been in contact with a lot of women, whether through, you know, faith or whether through coaching. What is something that maybe the average person that knows you in that way doesn't know about you? Share something about yourself.
Well, I was going to say, and you said it earlier, I was going to say that I'm really an introvert, but and that is true. I love women, and I will be foolish in front of them to make them feel comfortable and to make them feel loved. But I want everyone to know that I'm incredibly uncomfortable. I do not like to be in the front of the camera. I like to be in the back. But God keeps pushing me in the front of heading women's ministry. I think I'm the most unlikely candidate on the planet, but you know, He's done that kind of thing. The other thing that I just popped in my mind, you know this, but I'm writing a novel, and so as soon as things settle down, I'm going to return to my novel. But that is one way that I found that I can internally express myself and some of my journey that I've had. So,
Can you share a little bit about that book with us, or no?
Sure. It may or may not be autobiography. It is a smart-ass Southern tale about a Christian church lady who's come unraveled. So there you go.
Oh my gosh, I cannot wait to read that book. Wow. Thank you for sharing that with us. And you know, you're doing so, I know, gives a listener the courage to start writing her own sassy novel. You know, I want to.
Please, we need more.
Well, you know, and I in just a moment, I want you to tell women how to connect with you, you know, to find out more about this faster weight loss, even though I know it's not about the weight. I don't think I said it quite right. The faster way. But I just want to say that, from an inner healing perspective, I often say that I think that it's Christians wanting to do right and wanting to do well before the Lord, that we often get more stuck than the world does. And I mention this because you writing a sassy book about a Southern woman who's becoming unraveled is a great example of that. God's women have a lot of funny, quirky, outlandish things to say, and they need to be said. So thank you for writing that book. Thank you for sharing, about that book. And I just want to say, every time I talk with you, which is not often enough, I'm realizing like, oh my goodness, I think it's like we are mirror images of each other in so many ways. It's like I listen to you and I'm like, that's my story. And I think this is why we love so many of the same things, and why we've been stuck in some of the same places, and why we have found so much joy in getting unstuck from those places. So I think you would be a tremendous coach to me and to so many others. So for those that want to begin that journey, how can they connect with you?
All right. Well, I do have a website, but probably connecting with me would be better. And so you can connect with me on Instagram at SCStaley.
STALEY.
Right. And C is in cat. Or you can contact me on Facebook, Susan Clark Staley.
Okay. And they can just message you through there. And then
and I can give you an email too if you think that's
I'll put it in the show notes. I'll have you send it to me.
And then I'll have a link to there's a link that tells a little bit more about Faster Way, and then there's a way to register. But I'm a firm believer that if you want to make a connection first and talk to me and ask your questions, I want to do that, because it does require a level of commitment and work. But our motto is, which I just love, is progress over perfection. Yes. And so as long as we're progressing, it's a metaphor for the faith, Christian faith. It's a metaphor for life. Yes. As long as we're progressing, we're moving, we're growing. And when we make perfection as our goal, whether it's in our body, our mind, whatever, that is a mythical place that we will never arrive at. So progress is a place, is not a destination. It's a journey that we can continue on. And so anyway, I would love to engage with you, whether it's back and forth messaging or actual phone call. I would love to share that with you.
I love that. And as a coach myself who deals with the emotional side of what is going on with people, I applaud that. I truly believe that the Lord's desire is that we would be people of excellence. And, yes. Because perfection is an illusion. The only one perfect is our Lord. And yes, he's our role model in all things, and he gives us the grace to be excellent and to progress. But perfection should never be the goal, because it's a moving illusion at that, right? It's not just that it's an illusion, right? Yeah. It's a forever moving illusion. And for those of you that are listening and you feel like, this is a time to go through coaching, for your physical health, I say, please, really reach out to Susan. If you're thinking that this is a time that you want to work through some issues of grief or some inner healing issues where you're stuck and you're not able to feel joyful, you're not even able to feel prayerful. We do get to places where emotionally we become really stuck. That had definitely been the story of my life. And that's my passion, is to help women and men get unstuck so that they can begin to live full. And if you want to reach out to me, you can find me on Instagram and on Facebook at Laura Dahne, Dahne. Or also you could learn more about inner healing through my website, www.lauradahne.com. And I'd love to ask you, Susan, I'd love for you to finish us out. Leave some last thoughts with our listeners.
Okay, well, first of all, just say my next round is on June 15th. It's coming up. So just so you would
quickly.
I would finally say that the body is a wonderful thing. And being at war with your body, being at war with your thighs, being at war with all that is a lot of energy spent. And I, from a Christian standpoint, the part about Jesus that I have loved the most is his incarnation. And that it wasn't a despicable thing to take on the form of humanity. It was a lovely thing. And so our bodies are part of who we are. And, when you were talking about trauma earlier, we hold on to trauma in our body long after even our mind clears. And so, but our body is a communicator. And when we vilify it, and I think sometimes we do that in the church by saying, if it weren't for this body, I wouldn't have desires. If it weren't for this body, I wouldn't do that. But I think that is the wrong language, and that is not, I don't want to say scriptural, but I don't think that's godly. I think that our body is part of who we are. And if we treat it well, we feed it well, we care for it, we give it rest, it will start talking to you again. And when you were little, your body talked to you all the time. I'm hungry, or like, ow, that hurts. But we've learned to shut that off. Yes. But if you learn to listen to your body and you'll feed it well, it will say, I'm hungry. That tickles. I like that. And I feel like that would be the best thing that I could say to you is your body is part of who you are, and it's a beautiful part of who you are. And I want people to feel comfortable in their body, but it's all connected. But don't disregard the body. It's a profound, the incarnation says it all. Jesus came in body, God himself. It's phenomenal.
So beautiful. I've never heard anybody say that either. And I agree. There's a big difference, biblically speaking, between the flesh and the body. God gave us a body. And so we need to treat it well. It is that which holds the Spirit of God. So thank you for being my very special and beautiful guest today. I look forward to women, connecting with you, and I look forward to the next time I get to connect with you as well. So God bless you, Susan.
Thank you, my love. Let's not let it be so long. And thank you. I really appreciate it. This was an honor.
Well, I look forward to the next time, and to the listener. Let me find my thing. How do I stop recording? We just challenge you. Go out there and do something you've never done before. Write that novel. Have a Zoom conversation with a girlfriend. Just share your life, because in sharing your life, well, you change the world. Have a beautiful day.